Hi everybody, my name is Megan Rhoden and this is my channel Draw with Megan. So this is one of the first YouTube videos I've done where I have commented over the top of a speed paint that I have done. Just to talk about this speed paint in particular, it started off where I was going to have it very stylized and almost like a Disney style. I was going to do some line art with this one and make him kind of look like a Disney prince. But I decided I wanted to challenge myself and do something different than I haven't done before. And it sort of came with exploring this piece. And after drawing it, I'm like, no, this piece is just not calling to me to be this type of line art piece. So I challenged myself and I decided to do this whole drawing in grayscale and then all in one layer. So this whole drawing is going to be all done in one layer in Photoshop. And you'll see the whole process here, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the tools that I used and some of the brushes I used. All of them are going to be in the link below in the description, so click that and you guys can see all the brushes that I used. And I will point out to you what type of brushes I'm using and why I'm using them. Right now in the whole sketching process, I just used a regular brush, just a regular Photoshop brush on a little bit of the opacity. You can see this little tool up there that has like a circle and a little pen going through it. I put that on and put the flow at 50% and the opacity at 100%, and it makes it where the lines sort of go on top of one another and you can still see the line underneath it. So every time you draw over the line, it just gets a little darker. You can see here I'm starting to work with the lips and starting to get some shading done. You can probably tell that I've already started switching to one other tool. I'm going back and forth between the first tool that I used to sketch the drawing and then between the smudge tool to blend everything in. So the tool that I'm using to smudge is called Kyle's Impressionistic Brush. I love this brush. This brush is amazing and it blends everything so well together. So I put just like a big glob of color down, like white, and I put it over top of gray, and I just use that tool and just lightly press down and blend it in, and it just makes everything look so great and so blended and so, I don't know, I just can't explain it. It just works so good. So I did notice right here, I was squished, I had him way too tall. So I had to squash the drawing down a little bit, and I'm so happy I did that because his forehead was gigantic, his head was huge, and I wanted to make sure that it was proportional. And I always think it's always great to find those mistakes before you start going into too much detail, because once you get into it, it's really hard to come back from it. You know, it takes a lot of time and your effort of drawing all the stuff. You just want to make sure that you get it right the first time before you start going in all the details. You'll notice that I go over things over and over and over again and fix many mistakes. I'm not perfect. I definitely had to go in and redraw things several times, just trying to make sure that I get the features of The Witcher, of Henry Cavill's face. Hopefully I said that right. If I didn't, then I'm sorry. I'll say it right in the future the next time. But so I just wanted to get it to kind of look like him. He's not really roughed up. He's kind of looking like a beautiful prince, or like Legolas from The Lord of the Rings, which is fine. They're both handsome men. But you can see here, yeah, this is the impression tool that I'm using, the brush that blends everything really well together. I'll go back and forth between those two tools and just add a little bit of color, and then go back over it with the smudge tool to blend it in. And I just keep going back and forth and doing that. I was going to add some facial hair right here at this moment, but I decided, nope, needs a little bit more work on the face before I go into any details. So make sure you have your details done the way you want them before you start adding any details like facial hair, because you're just going to end up erasing it. Now, if you're working on multiple layers, that wouldn't be a big deal. But like I said, I'm challenging myself. This is all being done on one layer. And I have my references above. You can see at this moment, I decided I don't want to give them those big Disney-like eyes. I want to go back and try to make them more realistic. So I started making them a little smaller. This isn't the final eyes that I decided to go with. It's kind of cool to see how the process worked whenever I'm watching it back in the speed paint. It's crazy how much it changes in such a short period of time. But yeah, I'm doing all this work on the eyes. Mainly what I've kept in the original piece is going to be more like the bags under the eyes and some of the shading above the eyes, but the eyes are getting an overhaul pretty soon. I'm going to be going in there and erasing a little bit of the inside of the eye and redoing the pupils, as of what I'm doing right now. So I do go back and forth a lot, and I think it's important that you do not stick to working on one piece so much. You'll also notice that whenever I'm drawing, I also try to work while zoomed out versus zooming in too closely. And the reason why I do that is because if I zoom in too close, I get too worked up on the details, and then it ends up just not looking right. I think it looks better when you're working from a distance. And this is always something true, and even just working traditionally, is that it's great to step back from your work and look at it. So that's sort of what I like to do. I like to zoom in and out and make sure that I can see my piece from a distance and what it looks like. I think that you get the subtle details and the illusion that you've made those lines, and the details will just sort of come together as if you were to zoom in, way better than if you were zooming in. So I'm actually really impressed and really happy with the little wrinkles in his head. The more wrinkles you give somebody, the older that they look. He doesn't really have a lot of wrinkles unless he's like expressing a specific expression on his face. And you know, The Witcher is kind of this, rugged man, warrior. Sorry, that background noise you're hearing is my cat scratching his post. I'm going to kick him away really quickly. All right. So if you hear any noises in the background, it's probably just my cats walking around and making noises. And I'm sorry about that. I cannot edit it out. It's part of the experience of the speed paint and this voiceover. Okay, so the face is pretty close to the way I'm pretty happy with the way it is looking. So I moved on and I'm working on the clothes now because I can always go back in and change some of the features on the face, which I'm pretty sure I do. But it's nice to have your colors blocked out. Actually, kind of wish I would have done this earlier versus waiting until now. But when you're in the process of working on something, you get all, worked up and so excited to focus on one particular part. I noticed it, I caught myself, and I started blocking in the colors right here. The reason why blocking in the colors is really important is because you want to make sure that you have your values correct, and you don't want something to be too light and something to be too dark, because if I put the features to be too dark in the face, but his clothing is so dark, then it's not going to look right. It's not going to match really well. So it's important to color block to make sure that your values are correct. And I'm trying to work on the details of the hair just a little bit, just sort of get the idea of where I want the hair to flow. But I'm not going to officially work on the hair until like the very last thing, because he has his swords in the back and I want to work on the swords first and the clothing. I want to get all the details done first before I go in and I put all those details into the hair, because I will end up erasing part of the hair, and you don't want to erase something that you worked on for hours. Just so you guys know that this piece only took me about 5 hours to do in Photoshop in one layer. I did this over a period of 2 days. So I did about 2 hours in one night, and then I worked on it the next day for about 3 hours, and then I edited it all together. So you might see my recording screen where I've paused to get up and get some coffee or go to the bathroom, or just to pause for the day and go to the next day. So also here, I think I've pretty happy with the way that the face looks and the shape of it and all the details. You might see me go and messing with the cheekbones a little bit more, and I think I do add some more highlights to his eyebrows later and his eyes, but I want to get some idea of the impression of facial hair just a little bit. Like I said, I'm not going for a photo copy of The Witcher. I am just trying to get the aspect of it done, and this is my style. I'm not going to try to say that I can do photorealism. I don't normally work this way. I'm usually a very Disney style person that relies on lines. So I thought it was important to challenge myself to do something different, and plus it's kind of nice to take a break from whatever you're working on and do something different. And this kind of just brought me back to feeling like I was in school again, like college work, working in charcoal pencils or with clay it kind of felt like I was sculpting him out of clay, or just like working with charcoal pencils where you work with a dark surface first and then you add color on top and then you use your eraser to just sort of erase the lines out. That's sort of how this felt. And I do have the intentions of making another video, which I will hopefully have done by next week or the next week after. So sometime this in the mid-February month probably, I will have another video up of me coloring this. So some people are like, how do you color a grayscale painting? Well, it's very, very possible. I have not done it before, but I've seen many people do it, and I do use clipping masks all the time in my regular work. So I'm going to, after I get this done, I'm going to take it in to Photoshop and then take clipping masks of color and paint over the top. And what essentially that's going to do is it is going to keep everything that I have detail-wise here. And I'm just going to create overlay layers and go over it with color, and it should pop really, really well. I'll probably use more than one layer in that, but I am super, super excited to get that going and get that excited in doing that. Oh, also, you guys just may have seen that I flipped my canvas. And the reason why I flipped my canvas is I wish I would have done it more honestly earlier in the process. It's a little late for me to be doing it now. But I just wanted to make sure that it looks correct when you flip it, because if you're flipping your canvas, every once in a while you'll see maybe he looks cross-eyed, or, oh, this doesn't look right in the other angle. You want it to look good in both angles if you flip it. So I'm pretty satisfied with the way it looked. I didn't see any imperfections really at all. He still looked like himself. He still looked the same from either angle. So I left it. I didn't think there was any need to really change anything. So just going in here at the close, back and forth, blending, putting color down, blending, putting color down, blending. That's basically the process. Sometimes I will go in and zoom in so that I can get the lines to be harder. You don't want all your lines to be soft. It's important to have a mixture of soft and hard, so that you don't lose that texture. And we don't have just soft features on our faces. We do have some hard edges. So it's important to have some of those hard lines inside of your drawing, and also to have some detail every once in a while, like some texture. You'll see after I get done doing these paddings on his arms, I will add a texture over it, just with another brush that I downloaded, and I will also put that in the link in the description. It is just like a knitting brush. It's just a texture of a knitted fabric, just sort of to give the material some other texture that I can't draw. It would take so long to draw that, and I don't think that it's cheating if you are going to use a texture, as long as you know you're using it in a creative way. So here I am trying to create some stitching very subtly. It's not something that sticks out a lot, but if you zoomed in, it would be kind of nice to see, oh yeah, she added some detail there. That's kind of cool. Some other background about me, just in case you guys are wondering, is that I am a background painter, a visual development artist, concept artist, prop design. I do some animation, but I'm more into visual development. And hopefully going to be starting a job this next month with a studio. So I'm pretty excited about that. But it's just sort of the background that I have. I've always been interested in film, animation, and movies. Although it was one of those kids that just sort of sat there and watched behind the scenes and how the animators were so passionate about what they did. And it's kind of neat to think about being able to make a living off of art and doing that. And of course, you know, my family had hesitations of me doing it, but I think I've proven that I have talent and that I'm able to do this. So art is something that anybody can learn. So if this is something you're interested in, just draw a lot, keep a sketchbook with you all the time. You can make money off of art. Honestly, like, you don't have to draw in the style that I draw in. You can draw in any style, and people will love it. You know, there's somebody out there that will want something that you made. And don't limit yourself to thinking, oh, I have to draw like this person, or I have to draw like this person. I used to think that way, and it's not a good way to think. Nobody wants to get art from somebody who does art that looks like everybody else. Be unique, do your own thing, and you'll be seen. And I'm starting to see that now, you know, working hard. I did about 6 months of really hard work, drawing 12 hours a day, and I got noticed for it, and it's paying off. So just keep trying. I've improved so much this last year just by drawing every day, keeping a sketchbook, going to Starbucks and drawing people and having them stare at you because you're staring at them. But it's worth it. Honestly, like if anybody comes up to you and they ask what you're doing, they're going to say, "Oh man, that's awesome. Oh yeah, you can draw me. That's cool." I've had people who just like, "Who, you're drawing that person? Well, draw me next." That's kind of awkward, but it's kind of awesome that people are so willing to let you draw them. So if you feel more comfortable asking people to be drawn, then ask them first, but you don't have to. Nobody will really notice. Maybe it's a good way to practice your incognito skills where you can just sort of spy on people. Well, going back to the drawing. So my sister noticed that I had only put one sword in there, and she's like, "Oh, he's got to have his metal sword and his steel sword," and she's like, you gotta give him both swords. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I personally not played the video game, and I just now recently found the show on Netflix, and I'm obsessed with it. I love it. So I will probably end up playing the video game after the show is over, after the season's over. I have not watched it. I know I'm really far behind. There's too many shows to watch, but I really, really enjoy making this, and maybe I'll meet the actor one day and I'll be able to give a copy of the drawing to him. I like to do that. I've met Johnny Depp, I've met Orlando Bloom, I've kind of obsessed over Pirates of the Caribbean as well, and I've been to 3 of the premieres, and it's just a lot of fun to meet the actors and give them something and not asking for something in return. So if you ever meet an actor, don't always ask for something. Maybe give them something. Give them a present. Give them a fan art, because they actually really, really like it. So, well, if the actor's nice, then they really like it. Johnny Depp and Orlando Bloom are the best. So I'm sure that if you gave an actor that you really, really like something that you've worked really hard on, that they're really going to appreciate it. So maybe one day I'll meet them. I think that'd be really cool. I do live in Los Angeles, so going to premieres is something that I have done and will probably continue to do. So if I ever see a premiere or something like that for The Witcher or Superman or something that Henry Cavill is in, then I will go and I will try to meet him, because he is a really great actor and I think he's perfect for this role. So yeah, now working on the hair, you can start to see me working in the details. I do zoom in a lot doing hair, and in all honesty, I feel like the hair kind of turned out like it didn't really sit and blend in too well with the head, but I felt like it was a stylistic choice that I made. Every type of drawing that I do, the hair is very detailed most of the time. It's just my way of drawing hair, but if you like the way I draw hair, I will talk to you about how I did it. So like earlier, I put down a color, and I always think it's better to work from dark to light. So put down one of your darkest colors first, and then start to layer lighter colors on top. And if you start to blend it in too much, then just take the darker color and go back over the top of the lighter parts that you put in. It's just all about back and forth motions. So going along with the head, you want to make sure that whatever way the hair is flowing on top of the head, how it attaches to the hair and the head, that's what I meant, how it attaches to the head, you want to make sure that your brush strokes are going in that same direction. So it's really important that your brush strokes go along with the flow of the hair. And make sure that it is on a flow of like 50% or less, and that you make sure you click that little button with the circle and the little pin pointing through it. I'll try to edit this video so that I circle that so you can see what I mean. You guys will want to maybe blend in the hair strokes a little bit too much. Like if you put too much detail in, you might want to wipe some of it away. Like I said earlier, you want to zoom out of your drawing every once in a while and see what it looks like as a whole, because it can look like it's just sort of like a wig. I mean, he is wearing a wig, but we don't want it to look like that. We want it to look like he actually has the head on his hair and that it's actually attached to his head. So it's important to make sure you put enough lights and darks into the hair and a lot of detail in there so that it has the imitation of those brush strokes looking like hair. So you'll see this process takes a really long time. It took me, I would say honestly, the hair took me at least an hour to do just by itself. Like, I think I worked on the hair as much as I worked on the face. So I feel like the hair is really important, especially on this character. He's got a lot of hair. So it's important that the details get in there and that it really just flows with the head. So just continue to watch my speed paint of the hair. And if you guys have any questions at all, and I didn't really do a good job explaining them, sorry about that. This is my first time. But if you guys do have particular questions, please comment down below and I will definitely answer those questions. I don't really have a lot of subscribers at the moment, so if you guys have questions, I will be sure to answer them. So I'm really great about that and giving you guys artistic advice. So I do have an Instagram. I'll put that little handle on the at the end of the video, and then I will also put that in the link in the description if you guys would like to follow me on Instagram. I post most of my art on there, and you know, it's just a nice way to communicate with other people as well. And you know, if I like your art, I'll follow you back as well. If you're just a really nice person and I want to be friends with you, that's cool too. Just let me know. You know, if you live in LA or something like that and you want to get coffee sometime, I would definitely be interested in doing that. So you can see on the right side of the drawing that there are some heavier details in there because I think I finished that side of the head. I made my brush super small, and I chose like a little lighter color, like not pure white. I try to avoid pure white in the drawing because nothing is really ever purely white unless you have a lot of light hitting your face. I use that brush to add like the little wispy hairs that just sort of like flow outside of our hair so that it doesn't look exactly perfect. You just want to have some hairs that just sort of like flow out so that it doesn't look incredibly perfect and so tight. So having some wispy hairs every once in a while is really nice to put in there. One thing I wish I would have changed, and I might change in the future, is where the hair sort of touches the shoulder. It just sort of looks like it's sitting there on the left side of the drawing. The right side I actually kind of like, it's not too distracting, but the other side I think there might be just a little bit too much hair. So I might go in and fix that later, or maybe when I start coloring it, it'll look better because I can add a little bit more depth and more detail in there. So I didn't like how much the swords were sticking out, so I kind of blurred them a bit here. So I took a Gaussian blur in the filters tab above, and I just sort of blurred them back just a tad bit. And then I also almost forgot to put his Witcher necklace on. That's really important. So I went in here and I started adding that in. I drew a line with like a dark gray color that I could make sure the necklace flowed on. So if you're not just doing random dots, you just want to make sure that it actually looks like a necklace and not just sort of something that's sitting there and not doesn't have the flow of a necklace. So we want the gravitational pull to pull it down. So I go in with like a dark gray and then a little bit of a lighter gray, and then I add that little highlight on top of the beads so that it looks like metal. And then I just sort of added the implication of his necklace. It doesn't have to be all the way there. I didn't draw the whole necklace, but just that the implication was there. And it stood out a little too much. I put a little shadow underneath it, and then I took the blur tool and I blurred it back just a little bit so that it kind of blended in. I didn't want it standing out too much from the top, but I did want it to be there. So you'll see me playing around with that and trying to blend it back. So basically that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and if you guys want more videos like this or would like to see the next video of me coloring this, like and subscribe below, and I will definitely be adding more pictures and more drawings like this soon. Thank you guys for stopping by. Hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!